Hi, Lee.
Hello. Oh, good
How are you
morning. It's
doing?
morning here. So I'm okay. How are you?
Good. You are West Coast, I take it?
Yes. Where are you?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay.
So we are past lunch at this
Good
point.
afternoon.
Heading on to pizza for Friday dinner kind of thing. So
Yeah.
we're getting there. I always like that we host fundraising Fridays in the afternoon because everybody's sort of on Friday because most of the East Coast crew is like unwinding from the week. And so it's always got a good vibe. We're going to have a small crew today. Couple other folks. Hello, Miss Danielle. And hi, Rebecca. Ensure that I keep an eye on the room here so that I don't accidentally not admit anybody because that would be rude. So can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
All right. There's Violetta. Hello, Violetta. Give everybody one more minute. We're expecting maybe 7 folks. So want to make sure we don't leave anybody out. Also want to respect the people showed up on time. So it's always a careful needle to thread.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. This is Violetta. I'm the new content marketer for Progressive Power Lab. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to meeting you all virtually.
And we're so happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be
All
here.
right, guys. Let's get started. So we weren't expecting a ton of people for this call. Usually we have upwards of anywhere between 30 and 60 people, depending on the topic. So Fundraising Friday is usually a super popular event, but this is going to be really our back to school orientation session because we know we had the Packard Foundation through the Resilience Initiative had invited a lot of new grantees of their partners. So going to take some time to introduce us, get to know each other. You'll see a lot of repeat attenders as we go through the school year together. So networking between each other is a really important part of this gig. So I want everybody to feel comfortable with who's around the virtual table here. And then we'll sort of get into what to expect this year from Fundraising Fridays and where we're really standing, on the precipice of Q4 calendar fundraising. So we're going to do some introductions. Then we're going to talk about Progressive Multiplier and the resources we can have for you in our partnership with Resilience Initiative and the Leaders Trust. We're going to talk about current state of fundraising and then talk about Fundraising Friday and what you guys can expect and also get some feedback. And I like that we have kind of a small crew so we can have a really candid discussion. And Danielle, I'm going to put you on the spot a fair amount because since you experienced Fundraising Friday most of last year. So, all right. Any questions or anything before we dive in? Good. And Rebecca, I don't have you on video or voice, so feel free to use chat or anything like that if you want to tell me I'm going off the rails or anything else. All right. So as I mentioned, Fundraising at Fridays is a service of a partnership between the Resilience Initiative and Leaders Trust. Packard basically hired the Resilience Initiative at the beginning of the pandemic to set up what they originally envisioned as help desks for all of their grantee partners. So there is HR and fundraising and management and all the things. And Resilience Initiative reached out to Progressive Multiplier and said, hey, you guys do small dollar fundraising stuff in your own business. Can you help Packard's grantees as well? So we were like, we're in. And then about halfway through the year, the Leaders Trust spun off from the Haas Junior Fund. And they there are connections. Paula from Resilience Initiative used to work at Haas and the Leaders Trust. And so the crew got together and said our flexible leadership awardees at the Leaders Trust would really benefit from this kind of service too. So they joined forces, and now they both fund Fundraising Fridays, as well as consulting sessions for you guys. So would love for everybody to, and since we only have a few people, to give me your name and what your organization, what your role is. We always have like development directors, some executive directors, digital fundraising managers, volunteers, and let us know what interests you in Fundraising Friday. I'm happy to kick off the introductions. My name is Bethany Mackey. I am the managing director at Progressive Multiplier, and my background is all fundraising and marketing for nonprofits for the last 20 years. And within Progressive Multiplier, I have the honor of working with about 30 grantees at a time on essentially all of their fundraising experiments. So I am not in philanthropy, I'm a fundraising geek. So that's what you can count on me for, is all the fundraising geekery. So Violeta, will you give your intro here to the crew?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Violeta Bermudez. I just recently joined Progressive Power Lab as the content marketer, as I mentioned when I joined. My experience has been in business development and proposal writing in the government contracting sector. So I'm excited to be here and learn about grantees, fundraising, and all of that good stuff that we can do to support each other.
Thank you, ma'am. Danielle, what about you?
Yes, hello. My name is Danielle Royston-Lopez. I'm the Director of Development at Lotus Bloom Family Resource Center. So we're a Packard grantee. And our organization works with children and families, kiddos under the age of 5 years old, providing any resources and supports that we possibly can to ensure that every child has a strong start in life. I'm excited to be back for another round of Fundraising Fridays. It's a really fun group and a great way to share ideas as well as learn new things. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Danielle. Lee, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Lee Cooper, and I am the new development director at Parents for Public Schools of San Francisco. My background is grant writing and disability, so I'm new to like the whole development big picture and education. Our organization works in the family engagement space, and we're an outgoing Haas Junior FLA grant recipient, and the financial situation is one that is going to require a lot of work from me this year, so I'm excited to learn whatever everyone has to share. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Lee. Rebecca, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Rebecca Stutzman. I lead business development at Digital Green, international not-for-profit, mostly focused in the ag food security sector. We've focused mainly on grant support so far and just starting to explore individual giving. So that's new to me, and it's new to our organization. So kind of hoping to get ideas about that.
You will definitely get ideas. That is what we're here for. And Anne, so you have joined us as well. We're just doing some introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself to the crew here?
Yeah, sorry it took me a minute. I've been having some issues with my internet, so I apologize, working from home.
Worries.
I'm with Idaho Voices for Children, and I'm new to the position, so I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. And our grants, a lot of our, funding comes from grants, but a lot of individuals as well. And eventually I'm looking to get us into some planned giving.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
We love us some planned giving.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. And as I said, this crew is usually much larger. I think probably our regular attendees did not sign up for our orientation session, but when we start getting into the substantive meat of Fundraising Fridays, this group gets much bigger. and which is a lot of fun. We do record these sessions. They get posted both on our Center of Excellence, the Progressive Multiplier, and then Resilience Initiative and Leaders Trust also post them on their sites just for their grantees. So I want to make sure that everybody realizes this is a super safe space. I want people to be able to have the candid discussions. Fundraising is a high pressure field, and we usually have a lot of folks who are new to fundraising or new to their role or new to their organizations. And there is a lot you don't know. And our job as a collective community is really to help each other on those learning curves. So don't ever think there is no question that you can't ask. You can always reach out to me offline. You have my email address as part of the appointment. But my goal is to make sure you fall in love with fundraising as part of your mission delivery, and that you feel really comfortable in the skill set. So as I say, no holds barred questions here. So Progressive Multipliers partnership with Resilience Initiative and Leaders Trust gives you guys two options. Fundraising Fridays, which you are here for the first one of the school year. The other one that we have is one-on-one fundraising coaching. And I use that term coaching lightly because basically you get 5 hours of me, and you can use those 5 hours however you want for whatever project in the fundraising realm you want. So we have done lots of different projects for probably about 25 Packard and Leaders Trust grantees at this point. So if you need help developing your annual fundraising plan, if you need help training your board on how to fundraise, if you need help integrating your marketing and fundraising communication calendars, if you need help planning your end of year campaign, if you need help figuring out how to launch planned giving, sign up for a fundraising coaching 5-hour block, and you and I can work on that together. And we've had really good outcomes. Everybody's been happy with their deliverables and learning. So I'm happy if you need any references to hook you up with folks who have taken advantage of that offering to kind of get a feel for what that's like to work with us one-on-one. Any questions before I go further? All right. You can always ask Danielle because we're training her board soon, next week, right? Good times. Okay. So let me quickly tell you about the Progressive Multiplier. You're going to see these slides at the beginning of every Fundraising Friday because we always have a handful of newbies. And I don't want people going like, who the heck is this person? So Progressive Multiplier we're a funding intermediary, which means we go get grants from places like Ford and Haas and Mertz Gilmore, those kind of folks. We break up those grants and we give them to progressive nonprofits in the systemic change space. And we fund their fundraising experiments. So that's all we do. We don't fund direct service. We don't fund general ops. You get a grant from us and you get the program team's time as sort of in-house fundraising consultants to help you do things like launch individual giving programs or tests into things. So and the reason we do this work is, and we heard this a lot from folks in their introductions, is that progressive nonprofits tend to be way too reliant on institutional philanthropy. Usually about 80% of the budget is coming from institutional philanthropy, and that makes it sort of financially unstable. So our job is to get progressive nonprofits on a path to economic liberation where they're getting at least 50% of their revenue from dollars they raise, and sort of democratizing philanthropy for all the reasons. So that is what we do. And for funders, our pitch is that we're good at what we do. If they give us $1 and we give that dollar to a progressive nonprofit, we can help them turn that dollar into, on average, at least $3 more for their mission. So we're seeing really high rate of return on our fundraising experiments, which is fantastic. So, because our grantees are awesome. We work with over 3 different program areas. We work with justice groups, democracy groups, and enviro groups. And again, as I said, we fund systemic change groups, so folks that are doing campaigning and advocacy and things like that. So like we wouldn't necessarily fund Lotus directly, but we work with a lot of funders to do this kind of support. Some of you, if you ever have questions, if you are eligible to be a Progressive Multiplier grantee, please call me. We have somebody else joining. Please don't hesitate to call me. Our grantees really range in terms of the work they do, the kinds of work that they do, the sectors that they work in. So please, as I say, don't hesitate if you think you might be eligible for a grant. And regardless of whether or not you are grant eligible with Progressive Multiplier, we do have a free online resource center called the Center of Excellence. We've got their discussion boards and downloadable articles and things like that. We are trying to grow this. We're after some really major funding to completely blow it out to be sort of the hub of all things revenue generation. So please be patient. If there's something you want to see in there and you don't, tell me. We do have a couple rounds of grant making coming up. So we are getting ready for our third cohort of our environmental justice crew, and that will kick off in April, but we're starting to recruit now since we know that the funding's coming in March. So if you are in the environmental justice space, please give me a holler. And then our general grant making, we have money coming in November, which means I will be able to start giving grants out of our general fund in that December, January timeframe. So please let me know if you want to play with fundraising. All right. Before we dive into the state of fundraising, Luke, I see you've joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself to our Fundraising Friday crew here? Luke, can you hear us? All right, Luke, give me a holler when you can, and we will let you introduce yourself. Okay, current state of fundraising. I just want to go over top line what we're seeing in the industry right now from a performance perspective, and then really go around the table and talk about what you guys are seeing, good and bad, just so that we can get a lay of the land. So things are actually looking surprisingly good. All of this data is from the Blackbaud Institute Index. If you aren't familiar with Blackbaud, some of you may actually have Blackbaud software. They also run an analytics institute where they put out quarterly reports on sort of the health of the fundraising sector. So highly recommend them as a resource to know, like, what are the big macro trends you need to know about. So right now we're looking at quarter over quarter, Q2 of 2021 over 2020, we're actually seeing about a 5.8% increase, which is pretty amazing to me, given that when you think about April, May, June of 2020 and how much money was moving, that we're actually seeing more money moving now. It's just a little bit more, but it is more. And we're pacing ahead about 6% over a 12-month period. So things are pretty stable in terms of money coming in, which is great. But would love to hear how that's manifesting for you guys. And this is independent revenue generation. This isn't like foundations and things like that. This is small dollar donor and major donor kind of stuff. But would love to see how you guys are feeling, you know, as we enter kind of like 15-ish months since the pandemic started. Danielle, you want to kick us off?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that at our organization, we are really just seeing consistency, I would say. So it is kind of cool to see that in like the grander trend, there's a little bit of a bump.
You're on trend.
Yeah. So I think that, yeah, it's not a huge increase, I would say, as far as individual giving is concerned, but here and there, you know, our base is kind of like growing very, very slowly, but steadily. But yeah, I would say that the increases that we're seeing are quite minimal at this point in time, but I don't want to knock that either. I think it's successful at the same time as well.
Up is up. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Lee, what about you? How are things feeling for you guys when it comes to individual fundraising?
I've just been in this position for 3 months, so I don't have a really good sense of kind of where we were previously, but I think that the organization has not been good about stewarding individual donors. So that's one thing. I know we have capacity to do better, and so that's something I want to do.
Yeah, totally. And on the institutional side, I know that the waves of funding have been a little weird because a lot of people let go of emergency funding at the beginning of the pandemic, and then there was a huge shift based on sort of the uprising for racial justice and a real shift toward BIPOC-led groups and things like that. And it feels like the funders that wouldn't talk to us over the last 12 months are finally coming back to a little bit of more of a, what I would call regular cycle. the money's going to start hitting in the fall. So I think institutionally, we didn't see a giant contraction. You can have that during economic dips because depending on when foundations valuations hit. But yeah, the institutional funding, I think, is really holding fairly steady. We've had some significant program shifts in the sector. So like Open Society Foundation has canceled certain programs. So, you know, as those grantees have been tied off. So there have been some really bigger shops that have tied off grantees, but I wouldn't say that it's a sector thing. It's very individual. Rebecca, how are you guys feeling individual fundraising wise?
Since we haven't focused on it much, honestly, like if something comes in, it comes in, but since we haven't, it's not something we've been trying to follow. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
not sure.
This is a data gathering year for you.
That's right.
That is absolutely valid. Anne, are you in a similar spot?
Yeah, we're actually holding pretty steady right now. So it's been nice. We thought we would dip more than we did, and we really we're probably around the same numbers as last year. So we're just happy to not have dropped.
Yes, I think everybody is super thankful.
Yeah.
I did a blog. You can find it on our website about, and I like at the beginning paragraph is here is 12 months worth of headlines about the nonprofit health of like at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody's like, oh my God, we're gonna die. Yeah. And you know, then it was like end of year was really solid. So it was like whiplash watching sort of the trends over the last year. So Luke, what about you? Can you hear us and come off mute?
Yes.
Hey,
Sorry,
Luke.
I was traveling and trying to get on this call as fast as I could. And
no worries.
Yeah, thank you.
We keep it low key here. So Luke, can you tell us your organization and what you do in it and tell us how fundraising is feeling for you guys right now?
Yes. So I work for Hispanic Access Foundation. We are a nonprofit based out of DC. We operate nationally. We serve Latinos in the United States, bridging access to opportunities and trusted resources in order to develop them and elevate them as leaders in the many areas in which they are underrepresented. And the way that we do that is by building trust-based relationships at the grassroots level with many grassroots leaders who represent their communities in states all across the United States. And we really leverage and lean on them to sort of push for equity in the many fields in which we work in. So we don't have any expertise except that we're great relationship builders. In terms of fundraising this year, you know, just like everyone has said, it's been, especially at the beginning of the year, an unknown. There was definitely, we weren't sure what to expect. So I think hitting sort of, you know, the previous year's goals would have been totally fine. Fortunately, we hit it great stride and we'd had a lot of foundational support. We tried a few new things, mostly storytelling within our own networks. And that actually worked really well for us. And I think because of the recent social movement that's been going on, something that we have been, you know, closely a part of in trying to elevate the Latino voice as part of the larger community of color, has attracted attention towards us. And so we've been really blessed to have donor attention in that aspect. But the one thing we worry about, and something that I always, you know, try to bring up in conversation with our leadership is, you know, sustainability. You know, it's a trend now, but we have to live beyond a trend. So does growth now mean sustainability later, or is it going to be unsustainable? And are we going to grow up and then find that it, you know, we're going to be bottlenecked into some funding shortcomings and experience issues. So that's where we're at right now. So, but
no, Luke,
it's been
that's
quite
great.
a year.
No, I really appreciate you sharing. And it's one of the things that we always talk to our grantee partners and what we call you guys, our technical assistance partners who come through to us through Packard and Haas and places like that. We love to try to see our groups that we work with get to a 50-50 split of institutional to individual fundraising, because that is a more sustainable place. And I've seen, we have grantees. I usually get pulled in for the aftermath where somebody is supported like by 2 or 3 big funders and they get jillions of dollars and then they get tied off by a funder and they have such a gap. So this is the time to start building that independent revenue generation engine so that you do reach that sustainability threshold when you see variability in the philanthropic quote unquote market. So, and Luke, I also want to say, since you weren't here at the top of the call, this is a really safe space and community. We're together all year until, sort of graduation in June, and that, this becomes a real cohort. So please don't feel like boss is watching over you or anything like that, ask the questions that you really need answers to, and express the vulnerabilities that are keeping you up at night, because boy, there were times in the last year during the pandemic where, there was a lot of, oh my gosh, moments that we sort of weathered together as fundraisers. And so this is definitely a community to lean into for those moments. So want to talk about what is driving sort of the sustainability and growth right now. It's a little bit of growth, but growth in this state will take. Is that there are 3 trends that Blackbaud really dug into when their index comes from probably almost 9,000 nonprofits. So it's a really wide swath. And one of the things that people are attributing the sort of decent year-over-year numbers is that candid retention communication. So talking to your existing donors about what's really going on, how the pandemic and fundraising has affected your mission delivery, that kind of stuff. People getting more and more creative with virtual fundraising. So we have kind of gotten a little bit off of the having a Zoom. I have one grantee, she actually did a coffee tasting for a giving circle and partnered with Counterculture Coffee and had this lovely event, send people coffee care packages. So like people are getting far more creative with their virtual event. And then let me pull up in the chat here. And then agile collaboration. So this is something that, the pandemic really forced, in that we're often guilty of fundraising in a silo. And we really had to get much tighter with our program officers and our marketing folks and our comms folks to really pivot to wherever the new opportunity is. So Danielle, I'm going to pick on you again, and Anne, those folks that are a little more embedded in their programs versus starting out. Is there anything that you would point to that's kind of sort of keeping you guys in a steady state and in a solid position right now?
Yeah, I think that I also feel like for us at Lotus Bloom, it's pretty much as it's described here by the Institute Index. But I think that staying in touch with our donors has been very important throughout, especially 2021, as I think there's less of kind of an onslaught of information and sort of like, opportunities for activism in comparison to last year. But I think that continued communication has been what has helped us kind of sustain an open dialogue with our donors, and also to create more natural opportunities for giving, for participation, and for engagement with the organization. I also think that, the agile collaboration piece has been important too. It kind of feels like at our organization, we're still in a way pivoting as far as what we're highlighting as incredibly important, and really trying to be responsive to both the needs of the community first and foremost, but also I think what's really capturing the eyes of donors. And so as basic needs, which we provide to families, everything from financial assistance to like diaper distributions, for families with young children, because diapers are expensive, like those kinds of things continue to be front and center for many individual donors. Also at the institutional level, I would say, for foundations and government agencies. And so, we've found that we actually need to communicate more with our program staff who are on the ground, doing that work, to say, how can we kind of like come alongside you in a way that's supportive, but that also tells the story and, you know, fosters or cultivates more engagement, right? And so I think that's an area where we thought, I think going into like January of 2021, very uncertain how things were going to go. And even into the summer, thinking that we were going to be able to kind of take a broad look at all of our programs the way that we have in the past and say, look at all of the great things we're doing across the board, but it's still actually like paying attention to what are those things that catch people's eye and being like, okay, we're going to highlight those things. We're going to work with the people who are doing those things first and foremost.
Yep. Totally. Thanks, Danielle. Anne or Luke, anything you'd like to share about what's working for you guys right now on the individual donor front? I won't put Lee and Rebecca on the spot since they are starting programs versus trying to grow programs already in space.
Sure, I'll go. This is Anne. Kind of like Danielle, we've been lots of communication, we do a lot of newsletters. We're a little bit different in that we do policy work. So we don't necessarily have programs on the ground that are, you know, handing out services. So we work with a lot of legislators. So keeping in touch with all those folks. And we've really been able to use our board members a lot. They've been really supportive during this time and they know what we're all facing right now. It's difficult to get face-to-face appointments anymore. Just like we all are right now, we're all at home and my dog's loving every minute of this, but so we it's really been a ton of communication, but without, you run that fine line of, oh my God, they're sending us one more thing. So really, if you have a good board, and we've really been able to count on our board this past year and really help us. We have a lot of folks that are very, very connected in the community of, political and whatnot that we can really count on. So that would be my advice. If you have a good board, and they are very, very willing to help right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We are blessed with that as well at Progressive Multiplier.
Oh, good.
Anybody else want to talk about what's working before we talk about end of year fundraising? All right. So how many newbies do we have to the onslaught of end of year fundraising? Has anybody not experienced the Super Bowl before? All right, Lee, welcome to the game. So our July session that we did was actually end of year fundraising planning in July. So I had some good stats there, but just to resurface them, in general, about 30% of individual donations come in the month of December, and 12%, so almost half of that, come in between the 26th and the 31st. So if you have never done a robust end of year fundraising program, that is like, you're busy. You're a really lousy New Year's Eve date, as I told my now husband when we started dating. So that's just something to be aware of, there is a huge uptick, basically between traditional Thanksgiving and Christmas in donor behavior for lots of reasons. I put this up here. This is an infographic from our friends at Salsa. I did not edit it. So we really do start end of year fundraising planning in July, August. So that's why we did our July session on that. If you haven't started your end of year fundraising planning and you're going to do a campaign and you need some help, call me. Happy to help. But I just wanted to put this up here as a reminder of as fundraisers looking to get individual donations, we're in this September space. So this is time to really, like, July and August is your time to data mine and look at what went well last year and what didn't, and what you've got in front of you. September is really when the rubber needs to start meeting the road when it comes to the planning. So starting to figure out who are you going to ask for money in Q4. So putting that, what we call audience segmentation together. And then in October, really working on the assets that you need to develop. So writing your emails, writing your direct mail pieces, getting whoever needs to sign off on them and bless them, your social media ads, anything like that, getting your call scripts together if you're going to have your board do any end of your calls, making sure your donation pages and your website are in tip-top shape. So we're in that September, October, getting our ish together time. If you are behind the 8 ball, it is totally fine. I'm happy to help you get on track if you need help, as again, reach out. And then really solicitations start in November, depending on what area of the sort of cause spectrum you work in, dictates when you start your end of year fundraising. So I used to have Feeding America as a client when I was in agency world, and they made most of their money actually pre-Thanksgiving because they did, you know, essentially feeding a family as a, and really what food means culturally to families. So that was a giant part of their campaign, much more so than true end of year. Versus I've had veteran service organizations, so obviously their campaigns are very more towards the beginning of November and Veterans Day. Giving Tuesday falls the Tuesday after traditional Thanksgiving. It is a fantastic time of year to convert people who are on your file but haven't given, or to get new donors. So that is sort of your newer donor aim. And then as you get into the traditional Christian and Judaic holidays and calendar year end, there's money to be had on the table. So if you have not started planning, we can talk about that now. Anybody have anything end of year they want to air out that they're petrified of or really excited about, or anything else?
We are
Any panic
actually,
attacks?
yeah.
Go ahead, Luke.
I'll go ahead and jump in. Thank you. We are right now debating amongst ourselves what our unifying message is going to be. Because we offer such a variety of programming, we often find ourselves conflicted in sort of what, you know, where we're going to focus our energies in terms of messaging and storytelling. And so right now there's a couple ideas floating around. Well, let's just do stories, everyone's story, and just do like a storytelling month maybe around it. And others, you know, think otherwise. So, and I'm not sure what the answer is.
The best advice I can give, and everybody jump in here, because that's one of the great things about Fundraising Friday, this is a brain trust, is that it doesn't matter the stories you guys want to tell, it matters what your constituents want to hear and how that lines up with their motivation for giving at different times of the end of year cycle. So when you get down to the last week of December, if people are giving between the 26th and the 31st, it's a tax year-end motivation, right? There doesn't have to be a lot of mission content there. If you're asking in that sort of mid-December, more holiday time, and please know I use these terms lightly because it's, you know, like I don't celebrate Christmas, I celebrate the winter solstice, you know, but that sort of general holiday time, there is usually a much more person-to-person family tradition. There's a national vibe to it. Thanksgiving, leaning into gratitude, leaning into those who don't have opportunity, you know, so Giving Tuesday is often that, like, you know, it really is that Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday arc of like anti-gluttony of American consumerism. So like, see how your messages line up to why people give at different places in November and December. That's the best way to start framing that. And you can do it with that one individual story lens. You can do it with, you know, different ways, but I would say the most important thing is lining up to donor motivation during the season. Does that help?
Yes, appreciate the advice.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any end of year questions, thoughts, things they want to dig into before we talk what Fundraising Friday is going to look like for the rest of the year? All right. If you get deeper into end of year season and are having a panic attack or anything like that, please reach out. I'm always happy to give perspective on emails or artwork or audience segmentation, anything like that. So don't hesitate to ask. There are also, I don't do any like from scratch end of year stuff because everybody and their brother has written great end of year materials. Almost all of the big nonprofit software companies, all of the agencies. So we linked some of my personal favorites in here, and feel free to screen cap this. We'll also send out the deck to everybody afterwards, but just, you know, do some reading. End of year is a really formulaic time. And because we don't have the complicating factor of the election-ish right on top of it, like we did last year, which is great. So definitely take a look at these and make sure you've got your end of year game locked and loaded. All right. Fundraising Friday. So that was the more content part of our time together. And since this is orientation and we have folks who are new to Fundraising Friday and our partnership here, wanted to talk a little bit about the way we're changing format for this year. And for those of you who are new, it's not a change for you. This is just what we're going to do. And then also I want to pick your brain on topics. So we've set the topics tentatively for the first 6 months, but I have not planned the back half of the year. And would really love perspectives on what you guys want to learn. We have no preset agenda as Progressive Multiplier coming into this. We want to put together whatever content is of interest to you guys. So definitely speak up. All right. So we actually do a survey after every Fundraising Friday session. It's really annoying, but the data is super helpful for me of what worked, what didn't. And so before we met with Leaders Trust and Resilience Initiative this year, we went through every single comment and every single survey from the entire academic year. And luckily, people really liked Fundraising Friday. So we got 4.6 out of 5 people said that the overall content was really useful, and 4.5 said it was super specific, relevant to them. So I'm pretty happy with that. The themes in terms of what people didn't like was not having a ton of small organization examples. And because I come from, I spent the last 10 years in agencies working with really big clients like Boys and Girls Clubs of America, Feeding America, Paralyzed Veterans for America, Komen, you know, Alzheimer's Association, those kind of places, which means I'm used to running, you know, $10 million online programs. And really big examples and big spends. So that's where all of the decks I can pull from are. The rules are still the same. If you're spending $5,000 or $5 million, like the planning process is still the same, but I didn't do a great job of distilling down the process outside of the examples. So that's something that I will work much harder on this year to get those smaller group examples. Not having enough time for discussion or having the discussion contained to a topic. As our group grew, that got harder and harder. So we've changed the design of the program a little this year for that. And then people do not like when I start late. I tend to give people a few minutes to log on because as somebody who's always scheduled in back-to-backs, and Violetta will know this, I am consistently 2 minutes late to every call. Because I'm just jumping off a call and occasionally I need to refill my water bottle. So I always try to give that time. So I will do my best to give enough time, but not be disrespectful to folks who are able to be there on time. So those are really the 3 consistent pieces of feedback of what people didn't like. So Danielle, how does that feel to you as a longtime attender? Feel right?
Oh yeah, I would say so, definitely.
Okay, cool. And people really loved when we were able to give out actual templates or plans or, you know, any sort of rules and ratios that they could use as direct tools. People liked case studies and enjoyed when we had panelists or guests that could, like when we did our board fundraising training, we actually then had an ED and a board chair talk to our group about the good, the bad, and the ugly of board fundraising. So I would love to hear if what you want out of these sessions together resonate as those of you who are new, if that's what you're looking for at a Fundraising Friday. And Danielle is our alum here. If those were the tools that were useful, is there anything else you'd throw in that you want more of? List look good. Anything more we want?
I think that list looks great.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to do more templates and stuff this year. Okay, so our new theme or our new format for Fundraising Friday. Last year, we adopted doing like 2 sessions on one theme, and we would do sort of lecture and discussion on session 1, and then session 2, we'd try to bring case studies and things like that. People really pushed on wanting more space to have their own programs discussed or to have more thoughtful discussion. So the way we're going to do it this year is session 1, starting next month, will be the traditional Fundraising Friday, like lecture, discussion kind of thing. So like we're going to do next month is about corporate sponsorships and corporate partnerships and alliances and how to raise money through that. And so we'll do discussion, examples, Q&A. Anybody who attends the first session is then eligible to sign up for the second session. And we're going to limit it to 8 participants, so it'll be a smaller group like this, and we'll actually do a deep dive into each of your programs for that 90 minutes. So we'll try to do some really customized feedback. You'll be responsible for kind of, in the case of corporate alliances, like before the call, shoot me your questions and any examples so that I can come prepped. And then we'll have a real like deep in-depth roundtable discussion about your programs, and you can learn from each other and see on hand examples. So how does that feel for how we're going to roll with this? Does that feel like it'll be useful? Danielle, since that's a fairly big change from last year, does that sound okay?
Yeah,
I'm sorry I'm picking on you so much.
It's totally fine. I know you had mentioned earlier, Bethany, that sometimes it's hard to get those very like specific questions answered in like the group when we have, 40 people on the call. And so I think having a session for that deep dive and limiting the participants is going to be really helpful.
Awesome. And if we find that there's more demand than those 8 slots allow, we'll do a second session. So we're just going to play that by ear because we want to make sure everybody gets what they need. But that's how we're planning on rolling until the data tells us otherwise. So let's talk topics. These are our topics for, as I say, we went through January, and these are all from feedback from the gajillions of surveys from last school year. So we actually tallied what people requested, and these were the top ones. So next month, we'll be digging into corporate partnerships, so how you can partner with corporate entities as a revenue generation stream and how to do that. And then in November, we're going to talk institutional fundraising. So what's the latest and greatest on how do you research to find new funders, best approaches for when funders don't take unsolicited proposals, any sort of the new platforms that you should be on, like Just Fund with your general applications where funders can find you, all that kind of stuff. December, we're going to do only 1 session that month, and it is going to be a 2-hour extravaganza about 2022 trends to watch for. It's always my favorite blog to write every year. And then in January, there was a lot of interest of sort of next gen and younger donors. How do you attract them? How do you keep them? What can you expect from them? Kind of thing. So those are the ones that I could glean out of the data that the crew from our previous school year was interested in. But you will see lots of blankness between February and June. And that's what I want to talk to this crew about is, I'm going to grab my pen. So talk to me about what's not on this list that you want to learn.
Bethany, right off the bat, we are having a board transition right now. And although I'm not a part of choosing who's going to be on the board and what kind of board this is going to be, I do want to sort of foster them as fundraisers. So I would love to listen more about how to make fundraisers out of your board or leverage them.
Yep, absolutely. And you bring up a really good point because we actually did board fundraising last year, but I expect we're going to have so many new people. I want to tackle how do I revisit a topic and still make it applicable to the people who saw the first session. So that is a good, I will use that one as a good challenge. And that is, the board stuff is probably the most common request we get when it comes to the one-on-one projects. So, all right, what else? So especially like Lee and Rebecca, since you are newer to the game, where do you feel like your blind spots are that we could really dive deep for you?
Yeah, I could really use help with major and mid-level donors.
Yep. And just in terms of how to find them, how to treat them, all the things?
All of it, all the things, yeah.
Okay.
I was like,
Got
I'm
it.
a longtime grant writer. I'm a one-person development shop. I have to do all the things now. Tell me how to do it.
Yes. I hear you. We are in the midst of hiring a development manager, so I am a one woman fundraising team right now, and it's a lot. I will send you a deck that I have on mid-major giving, Lee, just to get you started, but we can definitely, I think that would be a topic worth revisiting.
Thanks. Yeah. And just
And
like kind of
Anne?
like for the top level stuff for me, because I've got all this other stuff I'm doing too. So what's,
Yes. Break it down. What is, I call that the minimum viable product.
yes.
What is the thing that we've got to get done? Anne, what about you? You said planned giving. Tell me the ins and outs of planned giving.
Yeah,
that
we
you're
do not
curious
have
about.
a plan at all for planned giving, and we're I was at the Red Cross before this, and we had a lot of
Okay.
legacy gifts, and it, you know, you don't
Yep.
know when to count on those, but when you get them, they're it, you know, sometimes quite shocking what you get. But
Yeah,
a lot of the donors
absolutely.
are a little bit older, which is an awful way to put it. Not like we're trying to push over the edge, but I think we're missing out on asking some of these folks that are very devoted to our cause
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, no, and it's all about like, how do you start talking about leaving a legacy and what your future needs are. And some of the better programs that I've seen do this, harkening back to what something Luke said about sustainability, is that planned giving can actually be a real play for helping the future of the organization get to a financially independent place, because they're significant, usually big chunk gifts. So that's definitely something that we can dig into. Those are three great ideas. What else? And Violetta, if there's anything that is top of mind for you as a newbie to fundraising.
For me, everything. So at this point, everything. A one-on-one.
Yes.
Fundraising
Yes.
one.
I'm just going to start calling Violetta our sponge, because she is just like the fastest learner and wants to know it all. So
I'm
I
trying.
appreciate that. Rebecca, anything that's on your mind as somebody who's sort of in a starting program place that would be interesting for you to dig into?
Yeah, is there similar to what Lee said, just needing to know, yeah, the basics, where to start, but also how to think about the return on investment for us. We know, like, you know, we would need to invest in some places, but being able to communicate to our board, and even, you know, thinking about it internally, where's how much is it worthwhile for us to do, and where do we see a return on investment?
That's a great one. And as those of you who know me, I am a huge numbers and spreadsheet geek. So doing ROI analysis and long-term investment planning is one of my favorite fundraising things to do. So thank you for the permission to do an entire session on that, because I think it's something that everybody dreads, but it's investing, especially in independent fundraising. It's rarely an immediate payoff. It's usually a 2 to 3 year payoff for a new donor to break even. And that's, you know, everybody looks at things like, oh, digital fundraising, you know, make it like that. And it's like, well, yes, the money is fast to come in and it costs less than things like direct mail, but it's still money. So I think that'd be a great level setting, like how to talk to your board and your ED about, you know, what do you invest and how fast do you expect it to come back in, and how do you diversify those investments so that you've got some slower burn and some quicker burn ones. That's a great idea.
Great.
And a basics on where to start. Like, so one of the things, even for slightly more mature program like Danielle's, or I'm also working with Jen Byrne from Rise Up Together. She's one of the Leaders Trust grantees. And we worked with Felicia over at Santa Cruz Museum, doing sort of board level breakouts of like, here's where our individual giving sits within our broader revenue picture. Here's where it should sit. Here is how we need to start this evolution. Is that too, and that's Tuka, you'll see him a lot. Is that too 101, or is that something that would be helpful to really talk about? How do you high level frame your giving program to leadership? Would that be helpful, especially for those of you who are a little newer to this?
It would be for
Yes.
us. Yeah.
That's something
Luke,
I'm
that would help you?
figuring out right now. Putting together.
Okay. Yeah, because it just feels like that's something that we never get trained to do as fundraisers. Like, we get trained in the tactics, but never putting the big picture together. So, okay. Taking notes here. Anything else? One, two, three, 5. That would fill up our slots. Would that be a good hit list if we fill that in with a revisit of board fundraising and sort of, I think it'd be really interesting for the folks that we've done board training for, maybe do a panel of those groups and say, here's how it went, here's what sucked. Actually, here's how I sat down and did give get forms with my board members and how awkward that was and all the things. We could do a revisit of the mid-major and how to build that program. That was a really popular session of like, how do you figure out where your line is for major donors and how many, what should they be listing of your overall individual giving program? So I think that I could probably like take about 20% of that content and then give it an 80% facelift. Same with planned giving. We did some planned giving, but we didn't do a super deep dive. So there's still a lot of ground to cover on some of the emerging options for planned giving. Sort of a big picture where to start session, and then an ROI session. Does that feel like, if that plus these, does that give you what you want out of being in school with us for a year? Feel okay?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that works. Thank you for doing my homework for me. That helps a lot. And if there are ever any other topics, we do have room in our contracts with especially Resilience Initiative that, you know, if we want to do, like if there's a particular interest in like, I want to talk about Facebook advertising or like some little tactical thing, and we can do a brown bag or, you know, so don't ever hesitate to bring up things you want to learn. We can always figure out a way to teach. All right, guys. Anything else we want to talk about? Normally we go 90 minutes, but I knew this was going to be a shorter session, just as orientation. But is there anything else that's on your mind that you want to talk about in terms of Fundraising Fridays or one-on-one coaching, fundraising in general? Anything at all?
You just schedule them directly through you?
Yeah, so the one-on-one coaching, go to, so it's, are you a Resilience Initiative Packard grantee?
Yes.
So reach out to Michelle Mengel, and she will hook you up because she has to like say, yep, you chose this, and then she will pass you off to me. And usually what we do is we schedule like a half-hour sort of project definition session to see what you need. And then the rest of that time, sometimes people just give me a deliverable and I go do the heads down work and hand them something at the end. Sometimes we do work sessions and we'll actually be like on the phone for 4 hours over a couple of weeks to do training. So like we're totally flexible in how we set up, how we use those hours. It's just whatever's best for the thing you want to do.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Anything else, guys? All right. So October 1, we will kick off our school year officially with corporate alliances. And after that October 1 session, you can register for session 2, our deep dive. As always, you will get a survey. Please fill them out because we really do read them and use the data so we can pivot the program to what you need. So everything that we planned was based on the data. You don't have to write a book. Just be like, this was good. This sucked. Please do this next time. I'm open to all of it. And I'm available to you guys over email anytime with fundraising questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need assistance. And I'm really looking forward to working with all of you in your programs, and hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. And we will talk soon.
Thanks so much.
Take care, all.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.